Hi, I'm Howard Goodwin, and welcome to All Aboard. We're going to step back in time over 30 years to the closing days of the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad's narrow gauge freight operations, wherein the rails were a scant 3 foot apart compared to the standard gauge of the United States, almost 5 foot apart. This film was shot by noted railroad photographer Emery Gulash in the area of Alamosa, Colorado to Chama, New Mexico. We will see actual freight operations with double heading and mid-train helpers. There are many scenes in the yard with engines being prepared for runs, as well as trains being assembled with their respective motor power needs. The running shots feature the narrow gauge engines working hard in the spectacular mountain scenery for which the Denver and Rio Grande Western was so well known. Our train awaits. All aboard.
Railroaders called it the Chama turn. Most rail fans called the narrow gauge freight operations out of Chama or Alamosa the Cumbres Pass Run. Cumbres had to be tackled in both directions. Eastbound out of Chama, the grade was a stiff 4%. Westbound out of Alamosa, it was 2.5%. Either way, Cumbres was a challenge to railroaders. In the winter, snow drifted to as high as 40 feet. In the 60s, Emery Gulash lovingly photographed the Rio Grande narrow gauge operations prior to impending abandonment. His photography of this last vestige of steam is one of the best ever made of Colorado narrow gauge. Emery called this film 3 Foot Freight, Durango East. We have named it the Chama Turn, the name used by D&RGW employees in those days. The film covers territory from Alamosa to Chama. Alamosa was at the eastern end of the D&RGW. The 3-rail trackage out of Antonito served as a high-speed main line for the narrow gauge. The 3 rails between Alamosa and Antonito allowed the Denver and Rio Grande Western to operate both standard gauge and narrow gauge equipment on this portion of the railroad. The standard gauge track continues north from Antonito to this day to connect this town to the rest of the nation's rail system. This track once formed one link of a large loop of track extending to the west known as the narrow gauge circle. Durango, Colorado, and Montrose were the 2 corners on this western side, with Salida and Antonito on the eastern side. The narrow gauge circle allowed the Denver and Rio Grande to gain access to many gold and silver mines in Colorado in the late 1800s. Not long after World War II, the circle was broken as various segments began to be abandoned. After not being used for 2 years in the late 60s, the track between Antonito and Chama were sold to the states of Colorado and New Mexico to operate a tourist line. The narrow gauge rail was then soon removed between Alamosa and Antonito. The driving force for building a major narrow gauge railroad was from General William Palmer, the first president of the Denver and Rio Grande. After looking at what had been done in Great Britain, he was convinced that a railroad could be built at less expense by using smaller equipment, lighter rail, having a narrower roadbed, and going around the edges of the mountain instead of digging costly tunnels. Many other aspiring railroad entrepreneurs throughout the country also believed in the benefits of narrow gauge, and the 1880s and 90s saw the diminutive railroads being built in just about every state. 3-foot gauge was the most common, but examples of many gauges could be found. They range from the really narrow 2-foot gauge railroads, predominantly in New England, to the 4-foot 6-inch gauge North Arkansas Tram Railway. Although there was some merit to General Palmer's reasoning, in reality, the narrow gauge railroads could not successfully compete with the larger equipment of the standard gauge lines. Not only could they not haul as much freight, but the interchange between the 2 gauges was time-consuming and costly.